There are several stories. One is an old story that has many, many versions, but this is a modern-day version of that old tale. And it's a story about a man who decided that he would like to go out for a Sunday drive. And he got in his car and drove out into the wilderness and was going along a very winding road, but then he came to a stretch that was quite narrow, and in the distance there was a bend which went around. But as he was driving along, he suddenly saw a large truck come around the bend, and because that section of road was very narrow, there was no way that both of them would be able to traverse that segment without having a crash. And on the other side of the road it was very steep and led down into a deep ravine. But as they came close and he gritted his teeth and held on to the wheel and negotiated as best he can, somehow, with a great sigh of relief, he found that he'd gotten past the truck in the past. The truck had long since disappeared behind him, and he congratulated himself on coming out of this totally unscathed. But suddenly he realized that his car was tilting very precariously over the edge of the ravine, and it could slip at any moment. So a great fear took over him in this realization, and the thought, of course, well, I survived this near experience, and now I'm going to fall over this ravine and I'm going to meet my fate anyway. So, of course, just as he was anticipating, suddenly the car began to slip and fall, and it went tumbling down the side of the ravine. And he was waiting for the great crash that was to come and the experience of leaving his body, when suddenly he realized that there was a great explosion, and he saw that the car had indeed slipped right down the ravine, but that the door had opened, and he was able to climb out, and he found that he was caught on a branch jutting out of the side of the cliff. Now again he congratulated himself on having survived yet another brush with death, because of course if he'd been remaining in the car he would have been in that explosion, that burning inferno that landed at the bottom of the ravine. But as he was there and of course clung to the branch that he had landed on, he suddenly realized that this branch also was very precarious, that at any moment it could break and he could fall to his death. But this man was not a religious man. He had not followed the faith of his culture. But of course, in moments like this, the next thing that was his thought was to importune a deity, a god. So he called out with all his might, "Oh, please, please, I don't, and I've never prayed to you before, but I promise I will learn to pray if you will just save me." But there was not a sound, and he again hung there, feeling the creak of the branch as it started to bend very precariously to allow him to fall. And so again he called out, calling out, "Please, please, please, oh God, I promise that I will go to church, I will become one of the faithful if you'll just save me, save me." not a word. All that he could hear was the sound of the wind blowing in the branches and the creaking of his branch. And then he called out finally with all his might, "Oh God, please, if you save me, I'll do anything you say." And suddenly, with a great rumbling tone, a voice spoke to him and said, "Will you do anything I say?" "Oh yes, yes, yes," said the man. "Just save me." And the voice said, "Let go of the branch." The second story is about the great Sufi saint Rabir. Every day, Rabir would take a path to the city square where she stood and shouted to anyone who would listen of her realizations. But every day on the path that she took, she would pass the steps of the mosque, and there, sitting on the steps of the mosque, was another mystic by the name of Hassan. And every day when Rabir passed, she saw Hassan weeping copiously, praying, calling to God, "Please let me in. Please open the door. Please let me in." And Rabir would smile to herself as she passed. But one day, as she came upon Hassan, who seemed to be wailing and praying and importuning, even more with tears rolling down his cheeks, "Please, God, let me in, open the door." And Rabir could not take it anymore. She went over to Hassan and she shook him roundly. "Stop this nonsense. Stop your praying. Useless praying. You are already in." And Hassan fell at her feet, and he said to Rabir, "Thank you. I could have been sitting here for the rest of my life, calling to be allowed in. But you have passed every day and seen me weeping here. Why did you not come before?" And Rabir replied, "Even a king is not allowed to interrupt a beggar when he is praying, nor even is a policeman allowed to apprehend a murderer or a robber while they are in prayer, and must wait to apprehend them until they had finished praying. But now it is time. It is timing." What does this mean for us? How are these two stories related? What is it that we must let go of? What is it that we must stop? Because it is time.